Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to be doing a bit of a review on my prep cart here. So this is definitely the best kitted out prep cart I've ever had, and I've actually done quite a few mods to it. I've got everything I need on it, and it's very streamlined. That's the key I found this time, is not having it cluttered. Having everything you need on the job at hand is obviously going to save you a lot of time, but also not having too much stuff there and not having it messy. Keeping it clean is also a very important part of it. So I'll turn you around. So yeah, I'll just go through everything on the cart. We'll start at the top here. And this is something that I'm sure people are going to love, so I will actually link in the description. I've actually had this for quite some time. It's just sat in my garage until I started working here. I thought, you know what, that's the perfect place to put it, on the back of my prep cart. So that's a mixture of demineralized water and methylated spirits basically. And that's good for cleaning. So for those who watch my channel quite often, you'll know that that is what I pre-clean my panels with before I start doing my prep work. The red one here, that is just straight up Prepsol, which is like wax and grease remover. And this one here is just standard water. So if I'm ever doing any wet rubbing, that's what I use. Now I put a few screws down here, but then I actually ended up having to reinforce it. So I put like a bit of a brace in there it was getting a little bit flimsy. Anyway, continuing on, I actually just hooked these up, just a couple of little bits of wire, and made myself a few little hooks here, just to hang some things on like that. I drilled a few extra holes in here, so I've got a screwdriver on hand always. They can really come in handy sometimes. I drilled another hole in there to hang off my seam sealer. So seam sealer is a good thing to have on hand. Continuing on, this here is actually something that you'll notice I've put a few of these on the side of my trolley. I did that recently. That was a recent addition. But what that is actually the inside of a roll of plastic. I'm sure most of you guys will know what I mean. There's a cardboard inner piece for the plastic to be wrapped around, and I just cut them into sections, and I just taped just a little bit of masking tape down the bottom there, tape them shut, and then you can use them as storage. So as you can see, like, this is pretty much how I keep it most of the time. Like I don't like it cluttered. I don't like to overdo it with too many things, but on the other hand, you still do need what you need. So yeah, we've got the blocks here, as you can see there. I've kept a few blocks inside here as well. So I've got like, this is actually a pretty cool block, this one. This is like a part of the 3M block kit, same with that and that. And this one is it's semi-flexible. So it's relatively hard, but it's not too hard. And this one here is actually a very handy one too. They're actually designed to fit around one of those discs. So they're very handy. They're cheap, they're like $8, but they're very, very handy little block to have. Moving along, this is actually something that I cut that up myself. So that is, again, part of that 3M block kit that I was telling you about. But I found that was too long to get into some of the sections. So I ended up cutting that down a little bit, and that's actually really handy to have that. It's so handy that it's up the top shelf, you know. So the things that I use more often are obviously up on the top of the cart. I do have a few other blocks, but we'll get down there in a minute. Continuing on, so I've got 500 grit. These are the softback sanding sponges. So I've got 500 grit, 800 grit, and 320 grit. I use them all, varying amounts. 500 is probably 500 and 800. I use them more of the time, but sometimes you get like big, thick primer edges, and you do need the 320. So, as I say, if it wasn't used very commonly, it would be down the bottom shelf. But these, I just made these partitions myself. It's effective and easy to do. So you just, obviously I've got the 4 boxes of sandpaper here, and then I just made these little partitions and just masking tape to put them in there, so that separates the different sanding grits. And as far as sanding grits go for the discs, we've got 320, 400, this one should be 600. I've actually got a couple of 500s in with the 600 as well. And then continuing on, these are the more coarse ones. So I've actually, same thing, I've got the 180s and the 240s in the same thing there. You know, it's just so that I don't have too many and I'm not using up all of the room on my cart. And continuing on, we do have like a little bit of extra room down here, as you can see there. So I've used that to put the, this is my little filler board, you know, so when you mix up a bit of filler, you put it up onto your board. Well, I don't actually mix it anymore. We'll get to that in a minute. But that's there. And then I've got some wet sanding sandpapers. So I don't use these all the time, but again, they do get used. So they're definitely worth having on there. 800 grit and 1200 grit. So I know where they are. Again, I don't just mix them all together. So it's a case of knowing where everything is and being able to grab it as soon as you need that thing, bang, you can have it, rather than walking around, oh, what? And I used to do that when I was an apprentice. You'd be walking around the workshop, and by the time you got there, you'd forgotten what you were getting, you know. I guess that's part of being younger and your mind not fully being on the job as well. But continuing right along, we've got some, that's guide coat, so that's like a dry powdered guide coat. And this is actually a pretty cool little thing I've got in here, very handy. Another thing, so it was actually off this, sorry, it was off my gun rack up here. So this is my gun rack, and originally that had these magnets on them, but it dropped down a couple of times. So what I did, I actually screwed that up into the wall up there, and that left me with a couple of magnets. So I actually thought, you know what, I'll put one of those magnets in there. So that's what that is there. And I use that to keep my body filler spreaders. So I guess you call that a spreader or an applicator. And I also use it to, I've got razor blades in there. So those who watch the channel regularly will know that when I put any body filler in stone chips and pinholes and stuff like that, I'll just scrape it out with a razor blade. That's where I keep my razor blade. I know where they're gonna be, and I'm not gonna be digging through other sections and cutting my fingers on the razor blades. Moving along, I've got a couple of little, these are just attachments, another little just compartment that I made here myself. That's a 10mm, and the other one in there, which is actually half stuck at the moment, that is another Phillips head bit, and that goes into my drill. I've actually got it's a impact driver and a drill, and I've got that on the other side. We'll get there in a minute. Moving along is my body filler. So this stuff is absolutely awesome. I've actually done a review on this stuff, so go and check that out if you would like to, but it is just game changing. It really is. So that's the body filler, and this is the fine filler. So this one here, the UV fine filler, and that's good for like stone chips and pinholes, whereas this one's more designed for the larger repairs and stuff like that. I've also actually started leaving a UV curing light on my trolley. That's how much use I get out of these body fillers. It just got to the point where it was worth having one of these on the trolley. I do actually have backup batteries up here, so I've always got backup batteries, and if that runs out, or periodically I just change them anyway. I want to change them out before they run out. But anyway, that's that. That's the body fillers. A couple of rags, always need to have a couple of rags, and you know, at varying stages of cleanliness. So if I get like dirt and stuff, I'll use the more dirty one on the underneath of the wheel arches, and then sort of rotate them. When that one gets dirty, that'll be the dirty one, then get a new one. Moving along, this is a chassis black gun. So just an old ANI R150. This thing's been going for about 7 years now. Had that for quite some time. It's been demoted to a chassis black gun, but that's not to say that it's not still spraying completely fine. So that's handy to have. And then this one here is my UV primer. I like to keep the UV primer in a suction fed gun, so that way like any settling that it does, it's going to go down to the bottom of the gun rather than into the passage here where the paint goes through. So that's another thing. And also it's got it's an aluminium pot on it, so no light is going to be able to get into there, and that's always on hand. I've actually thrown a couple of nuts and bolts in there, so you can see there I can shake it up, so that's to stop the UV primer from settling to the bottom. Obviously got my orbital sander. Again, I've actually done a review on this thing, and I can do a follow-up to that. This thing has been going very well for me. I'm very happy with how this orbital sander has been working for me. I've actually recently just done a full respray with that, and most of the time with the old air-powered sanders, I used to get like, I think it was like the starting of carpal tunnel syndrome, where your wrists would start, like when you put your hand into a fist, it would start all tingling through your arm, and I don't get it with that. So I definitely don't regret getting that flex orbital sander. It's nice and fast, and it's also hooked up to this vacuum cleaner, which is set to automatic mode, so I don't have to muck around turning that on every time and turning it on and off every time I need to use the sander. It just automatically turns on and off. And that takes me to the next part, which is the power. I actually just got a little power board from home, cable tied that to the side of my trolley here, so that you just plug in and unplug, and you don't need your two hands. It's nice and easy. And then that power board, I actually double-sided taped it to the side of my trolley, and that leaves me with a few different power sockets that I can use. And early on in the piece, when I started working here, I was using the heat gun quite a lot. As it turns out, now I've got the UV technology. I don't use it anywhere near as much as I used to, but I still do use it. And back then, I had someone, I think he touched the hot section, or he nearly touched the hot section of my heat gun from leaving it on the top of my trolley. So I thought, you know what? I will put it in there. So I actually got a drill and a hole saw, and you can see I put a bit of primer there to stop it from rusting up. But I just made it the right size, so that I don't burn anything on my trolley with that hot tip of the heat gun. So it's obviously going to be sitting in there, and it can cool down safely. So continuing along, you can see that I do have, and again, this is minimalist. It's not cluttered with things that I don't need there. I've got some safety goggles, a couple of different compounds, polishing compounds, a backup battery for my mini polisher. Again, this thing is one of those must-have tools in the workshop. Not sponsored, just it really is awesome. A mini polisher. And if you ever do decide to go and get one of these, don't throw this out. This is like an attachment for a roll-lock grinder. I actually used that this morning, so I don't use that all the time, but again, I do need it sometimes, and it's very handy to have. And then I've got my tungsten block here. I've got various sandpapers up in the top of this little bag here, and that's a different buffing pad for my mini polisher. A couple of microfiber cloths here. A lot of the time I will do my spectro readings. When I do my spectro readings, I'll get my mini polisher, shine up a little bit, get the spectro, and then I can take the reading after buffing up and making that paint nice and fresh. Moving right along, I do sometimes, most of the time, have some backup masking tape. So if I finish a roll, I can just go and get the backup one down there. And this is where I keep my sandpaper, my block paper, because I don't have a great deal of room up here. So I decided, yep, the block paper stays there. Moving right along, this one here is the cleaner for the UV primers and body fillers. So that's actually a PPG one, but I found it works fine. Also, this one here is actually amazing. It's really good polish. So if you told me about this, I probably wouldn't believe you. If you said there's a compound that can cut and polish in one, it will actually remove like 1500 or 2000 grit scratches, and then it will leave you with like a nice polished surface. I probably wouldn't have believed you, but it really is amazing stuff. So it's like a one-step compound. So I like to keep that there. I just put this on the side here as well, just for throwing things in. I did used to have these in there as well, until I realized, you know what, that will be a good place to put them in the side there. So that works well. Got my little bin. I just cut down, obviously, a drum. That's for the water cleaner. I cut that down, screwed it in there. And that's about it. So I've got, got some pliers, different pliers, a spanner here, and a couple of cable ties. All handy things to have. Moving along down into the bottom trolley. So these are the things that I use least, you know. So it's more down the bottom, it's backup and a few hand tools and my blocks. So down the bottom here, you've got these have got various different fittings and like flat blades and torque bits and stuff like that. So handy to have, but again, I don't use them that much. And moving along, I've got, backup. So this is like the rubber wheel backup for when I run out. There's a couple of backup boxes of sandpapers. I've got a little bit of Scotch-Brite. I honestly don't use Scotch-Brite that much anymore. Got these 1000 grit grippy pads. That's what I do most of my blends with these days. And I actually wear overalls when I'm working most of the time. So I just keep one of those 1000 grits in my top pocket of my overalls all the time. So I've always got it on hand. That's why I don't have it on my trolley. Same thing with my little Colad blades. I've always got one of these in my pocket as well. So that's why you don't see it on the trolley. They're handy to have. You know, there might be a time, say, when you're masking or when you're doing something, you're not even near your trolley, and you might just pick up on like a little bit of shiny paint on one of your blends, and then you just grab your 1000 grit and then give it a quick scuff. There's the rest of my blocks here. So again, that's part of that 3M block kit that I was telling you about. That's the long block. We've got like a slightly smaller block here. And this one here is the other section of what I showed you before. That's pretty much it for this side. And then on the other side, I do have a couple of tools. So those who follow the channel will probably remember that I got myself a cordless buff. And to get the batteries, it worked out cheaper to get this one here and the drill. So this is a impact driver, which is really good. This is like a ripper little tool. Totally glad I've got it. It does come in handy quite a bit. And again, this one here, this is just a drill, but I've found it's just really handy to have my rubber wheel in there. That's what I use it for most of the time. But on the other hand, I do actually have some drill bits up there, and occasionally I need to use a drill. Handy stuff to have, the kind of stuff that I never used to have. One more thing, obviously you can see I've got the vacuum hose here. So this sander here is electric. So what I ended up doing, I just got a few cable ties here and there and cable tied the vacuum hose to the electric cable there. And then what I did here is, this is just a couple of little loop of wire, and I looped that that hose up to the side there to keep it up out of the way so it's not getting dragged around. So it's definitely the best trolley setup I've ever had. I'll give you guys a quick look over it, a final look over it. You might be able to pick something up. I will definitely see if I can find the link to this thing here. I'm sure there's going to be a few people that like the idea of that. And it's definitely handy to have the color-coded system. So I know by looking at that, the blue one, I know that that's my water cleaner, and I know what's in the other ones because of the colors. But that's about it for a video there, guys. Hope you have enjoyed it. And I think next time I might even do a video. Let me know if you would like to see a video on just my paint bench and the things that I keep, because I keep it pretty much similar. So I've got down the bottom here, if you would just like a bit of a look over the tools and equipment that I keep on my paint bench, because as you can see here, I do like to keep it. You can kind of tell that's my area, and I always keep mine nice and clean. As I say, hopefully you guys have enjoyed watching this video. I think we'll have to do another video, just a bit of an update on how I'm going with the PPG, but I'm out of time. I've got to get back to work in 2 minutes, so hope you enjoyed. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Go and check out, we've got loads of new merchandise, so go and check out the link in the description. Until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out. I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you're more than welcome to go over and check out some of the merchandise we've got. My personal favorite is those spray suits, so they're a good quality Colad branded spray suit with the Gunman logo on it. There's also hats, drink coolers, hoodies and t-shirts, so be sure to go over and check out the link in the description if you are interested.